Hey guys, so this month I've been consuming a piece of content every single day, and then I've been putting out a YouTube video and a blog post based off that content. So if you want to see individual pieces of content and kind of my thoughts on them, you can check out my previous YouTube videos or my blog post starting at the beginning of February. So I also wanted to add to that basically a video recap of each week of kind of my biggest takeaways. Because we have a tendency, I think, to have this school mindset or test-taking mentality of we're going to take all this stuff in, memorize it, and then put it on the test, and boom, we forget it. We don't think about it again. And I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted these things to kind of infiltrate my mind so then I can use them in the real world. So this month, a lot of the topics are kind of centered around philosophical thinking. And philosophy is something that I've never really studied before. I didn't really understand even what philosophy was. Interestingly, one of the pieces of content that I listened to this week was a podcast from the Philosophy Bites podcast. It was called What is Philosophy? And it was over 50 different philosophers giving their definition of what philosophy was. And it was incredibly interesting because out of over 50 philosophers, not one of them gave the same answer of what philosophy is. And so it became apparent to me that philosophy can kind of be made into what you want it to be. And that there are a lot of different facets to philosophy. There's kind of that abstract thinking of philosophy, and then there's more the analytical side of philosophy. So one of my favorite definitions was one by a lady named Janet Radcliffe Richards. And her definition is that she saw philosophy more as a mode of inquiry rather than a particular set of subjects. And I really like this idea of philosophy because instead of kind of keeping in that abstract idea of, oh, like all these thoughts of philosophy that sound kind of crazy, it's more the analytical of getting down to the facts. It's not a particular set of subjects. It's this mode of inquiry. It's more of a mindset, I guess is what I would say. It's a mindset of what goes into thinking about everyday things that you may take for granted. So there's another piece of content that was titled Why Philosophers Make Formidable Entrepreneurs. And in the article, the writer is basically conveying his experience of noticing a lot of entrepreneurs who have had successful entrepreneurs who have had a background in philosophy, whether they majored in philosophy or just had some sort of philosophical background. And he makes points as to why he believes that those people have had success in entrepreneurship. So one of his points is that philosophers are deeply analytical. Rather than run their business on pure gut instinct, they look for evidence. By applying their analytical powers, they're able to reduce business risk. So this reminded me of a movie that came out about 10 years ago, and it's called Moneyball. It's based off the 2002 Oakland Athletics baseball season. And in that year, the GM, Billy Beane, who's played by Brad Pitt in the movie, basically restructures their entire program of how they buy, sell, and trade players, what criteria they use to do that. In the movie, there's a particular scene where Billy Beane, who's played by Brad Pitt, is there with all of these other guys, and they're doing their normal meeting of, okay, who do we want on our team? Like, who do we want to sign to our team? And the guys are saying stuff like, oh, man, I really like this guy's swinging. It looks really good. Or, oh, this guy pitches weird. I don't think that we want him. Or this guy's too old. Like he'll look too old on the field. And you see Brad Pitt in the corner who's playing Billy Beane, and he's just like, this is all that's going on. It's all just talking. Nothing is getting down to the facts. So what he ends up doing is working with a team of people, and a lot of people don't like what he's doing. But what he's doing is he gets down to the analytics of it. Who gets on base? That's all that's important to him. It doesn't matter what their swing looks like. It doesn't matter how old they are. Do they get on base? If they do, then he makes this team of people who get on base and make this winning team. So against a lot of opposition, that team went further than anybody could have imagined. And everybody was doubting the entire way, but they went further than anybody could imagine. And as a result, the entire league changed. Nowadays, everyone uses the way that Billy Beane constructed that team to figure out their team. So this just reminded me of this mindset of when you don't take things at just gut instinct of this is how they look, like in a business, it's like, oh, well, this is just how our business has to run because that's how it works. But thinking outside the box and getting down to the details. All right, okay, let's not look at it up here. Let's look at it right here and expand upon it and get into the details of, okay, what exactly goes into this? Why does it work that way? And questioning everything. So this is one side of philosophy. There's also the other side that is more the abstract idea. And the reason that I talk about this other one is because I think it's the one that applies best in the business setting of thinking analytically about things, and then you have more creative ideas, I think, because you're not taking things at face value. You're questioning things and going more into things. So perhaps in a future video, I'll talk more about the other sides of philosophy, but I think that's the one that influences me most to want to do that in a business setting, and I think the way that is most productive and will create the most value in entrepreneurship.